of June 2014 paper for UGC NET JRF examination. In the previous classes, we have talked about the paper for June 2014. We have discussed the complete paper in 4 sections. And in this class, we would be doing an analysis on as to what topics are important for UGC NET examination. How is it different from December 2013 examination? Which topics were repeated? The questions on which topic were similar and which topic were given extra importance this time. So this pattern will help you understand what to prepare for the coming December 2014 examination, and also will help you give a trend as to what are the main focus areas for UGC paper 1. Since UGC paper 1 marks are added these days, it's very important that you pay equal emphasis on paper 1, because most of the students who are good at paper 2 and 3 get trapped into paper 1, and ultimately they go low in the rank, or they are able to clear only NET and not able to clear JRF. So that's the main option. That's the main concern for most of the students. So we'll see the main focus areas for June 2014 examination. We'll do a section-wise analysis. We'll compare 2013 and June 2014, and we'll understand the weightage of each and every topic. So now, this time the focus area was the changing pattern. Changing pattern means there has been a trend in UGC examination that one of the topic has been given extra emphasis each year in each paper. So for example, in June 2014, the emphasis was on the theoretical aspects of logic, the concept of logic, and the philosophical aspect of understanding a logic. There were not applicative questions on logic, like it was not a question where you have a statement and you have a conclusion and you have to say which conclusion follows correctly. That's the typical logical questions that are asked. But this time there were theoretical of logic as to what is meant by logic, what are the various types of logic, what is meant by contradictory and contrary approaches. So these are theoretical aspects that were being asked. And there was a very strong emphasis on this topic in June 2014. In December 2013, there was an emphasis on the cultural heritage. Okay, and finally, before that, there was a high emphasis on the defense and space technologies. So each year, missile technology and defense technology. So each year, the trend changes, and that helps you capture the dynamic pattern. So you do not know in December 2014 what would be a main area under logic, but what is important here is that you prepare constantly with each topic very nicely, because there would be some topics where there would be 4 to 5 questions and they would not be predictable. So most of the books which are available in the market cover only the traditional topics that are mentioned in the syllabus. And what we need to do is put an extra emphasis on the topics that have already been asked. For example, in the previous year, there was a question on defense and space technologies and missile technology. That means even if that topic is not covered in any book, you have to read that topic. So try to define your emphasis areas. Now, this time the major focus was language issues. Language issues meaning the reading comprehension passage this time was very difficult as compared to the previous years. That means the language was difficult and it required a sound knowledge of grammatical concepts and proper vocabulary, based on which the MCQs were very deceptive. And you can answer those MCQs only in 2 conditions: if you are very good at language, or you have a good vocabulary in English, or else what you can do is a shortcut method which says you can read the other language or the Hindi language of that passage, and while reading that passage in Hindi, that passage would become very, very clear to you what is important and what is the essence of that passage. So when you are able to understand that, you can answer the questions directly. Now this time there were 2 or 3 questions in reading comprehension passage. If you read those in English, you will not be able to understand the question even very correctly or the choices very correctly. But if you read those choices, the same choices in Hindi, you will be able to answer that question very promptly, because in Hindi it becomes very obvious. Okay, so that is a major area where students usually don't do that. But if you do that, you can have an extra edge in reading comprehension. I say that because reading comprehension is a very scoring section. If you are correct on that, you are sure to score 5 correct questions in 10 marks. So you have like a complete edge on that. Now, computers and communication, as we see the trend from December 2013 to June 2014, the trend remains same. 12 questions were asked in 2013 and again 12 questions. The questions were direct and easy and they required in-depth reading. Now, most of the questions in this focused on current affairs, and the current affairs was mainly from the month of February and March. The next is questions on higher education. The weightage again remains same for 2013 and 2014. Again, in this section, there were a lot of questions from current affairs. So they require knowledge of any recent educational reforms or educational scheme that has come up, or new universities that have been established, or any new university which has been approved as either a central university or has become a part of IIM, IITs or AIMS. So these are the kind of recent trends in higher education that are focused. Now, Indian polity, again the weightage remains same. 3 questions were asked. This time the focus was on Lokpal. So Lokpal, Planning Commission were the main questions that were asked this time. Again, Lokpal will be an important question, important topic for 2014 December examination. Then environment and culture. As I said, in December 2013, there was a very high emphasis on environment and cultural questions. This time there were no questions on culture. So 5 questions subtracted from this section and 5 questions added to the section of logic. So this time the questions were very direct. There were no questions on culture, and most of the questions you can answer if you have a very fundamental knowledge about the environment or natural hazards. Data interpretation, again same 5 questions as last year's trend, but this time the questions required a lot of calculation. So what is important is doing fast calculations, being quick at calculations, but the questions were very direct. In UGC, if you finish the rest of the paper at time, you have ample time to solve the data interpretation questions. So if you solve the data interpretation questions in time, you can secure 5 on 5 in this section. Teaching aptitude, again 4 questions. Most of the questions are applied. That means the questions are asked based on considering yourself working in an educational setting. For example, I am a teacher somewhere. What would I do to the students? Or if something happens to me, what would be my response towards the group? So it's more of application based questions. So consider yourself as an ideal teacher and what would you do under ideal circumstances. Based on that, you have to answer this section. The next is research aptitude. It's very important. This time the main focus was on thesis writing. So most of the questions were based on were asked from writing thesis and how to work on thesis. So again, the weightage is same, 7 questions from this section. Fundamental maths and mental ability, 4 questions. Very basic questions. It's just remembering what you did in your 4th to 8th standards. Basics of sets, basics of whens, number series, basic arithmetic. Very simple questions, very scoring. Last time there was a question on blood relations. This time the question changed to directions. So you must know the north, south, east, west, and the 4 other directions, that's northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. There was one question on this direction section, but again this is a scoring section. You can immediately know whether you are doing correct or not. There was one question on coding decoding. Very simple, very scoring section. You only need to know the very basics of coding decoding. Logic and argument. This time it was based on theoretical aspects, as I said. So the concept of logic is very important for the further examinations. The questions were very tricky and very conceptual. Most of the students got struck with all the questions of logic and argument. So this was a major focus this time. Now, the question is on current affairs. Most of the students are in a doubt what to prepare for current affairs. What type of current affairs is asked, and we don't know. I'm a student from Sanskrit, I'm a student from geography, I'm a student from mathematics, I'm a student from electronics. I don't know what and how to prepare for current affairs. Now, current affairs, a usual trend tells there are 3 to 5 questions each year on current affairs. This time and every time, usually, the focus is on environment and higher education for current affairs. So, any new university that has been established, any new initiative that has been taken up by a Ministry of Education or Ministry of Human Resource Development. For example, this time in February there was a news on Meta University concept by Delhi University. So this came up as a question. Then there is a big project by CEC which is e-content development for undergraduate courses. So this has been developed already for 8 to 10 courses, 8 to 10 subjects now. So this is an important question. Now, there were environmental issues. Then again, besides this, there was a direct question on who won the Datasai Phalke Award for 2013. So there can be direct questions on current affairs, but the emphasis is mainly on higher education section and environmental issues. This time there was a question again on Central University. So any new Central University that is coming up or has been given approval is important. And urban smog or urban pollution, there was one question. So these are the kind of main focus areas. So for June, anything that happened during the month of February, March and April becomes very important. Similarly, for the upcoming December examination, anything which is happening in the month of September, October, November is very important. Sorry, August to October is very important for examination point of view. So this time there was an unusual difficulty level for reading comprehension and logic questions. So we can say around 9 questions this time were very tricky and difficult. For reading comprehension, as I mentioned previously, the best method is to read it in Hindi and solve it. Logic had very tough questions, so it's important to understand the philosophical construct of logic, which has not been a part of syllabus in clarity. Like they have not clearly mentioned that they might ask questions on the theoretical aspects of logic, but this time there were a lot of questions on theoretical aspects of logic. So theoretical aspect of logic becomes an important topic for future examinations to come. Now we can see a changing trend between December 2013 and June 2014. So this is a kind of comparative analysis. Here we can see there was a very high focus on culture and heritage for December 2013, but there was not a single question in 2014. Logic and philosophy, there was no question which was theoretical in 2013, but there were 4 to 5 questions based on logic and philosophical construct of logic. So that was the shift in focus. Then reading comprehension was very easy in 2013, but it became very difficult and with a very tough vocabulary in 2014. Data interpretation was easy. Both the times it was easy, but the calculations were tough, and moreover, I would not say it was tough, it was time consuming. So you need to be very quick on mathematics, do your calculations very quickly. Last time, higher education, the questions were moderately difficult, but this time they were moderately difficult along with current affair aspect of higher education. So most of the questions in higher education that were asked this time focused on current affairs. And finally is environment. Last time there were most of the questions were direct and there were latest questions on environment. This time there were direct but theoretical questions, and there was one numerical question which asked you to calculate the amount of energy consumed, and that question was confusing and rather the data was incorrect for that question. So either that data was incorrect or we can say the choices did not match the data in the question. So numerical question, there was a numerical question in environment and that becomes a new focus this time. So make sure that next year there can be a question on environment. So what is important here is the dynamic trend which we can see, that is a shift from culture to philosophy of logic and weightage. So weightage usually more or less remains the same for most of the topics as we can see in the other classes, except for a few topics where there was a drastic shift. So basically we know what to prepare. So here is understanding the basic format of weightage. Data interpretation 5 questions, reading comprehension 5 questions, computers and communication you have 10 to 15 questions, then you have teaching and research 10 to 15 questions, Environmental issues, you have around 10 questions from geography and natural hazards. Mental ability, 5 to 10 questions. Logic and reasoning, 3 to 5 questions. Higher education, 3 to 5 questions. And polity, you have again 3 to 5 questions. So you know these are the basic areas: computers, communication, teaching, and research. So this constitute both of these topics around constitutes to 25 to 30 questions. So if you are sound in these topics, you are sure to do good in these topics. Now, again, UGC paper 1 has one good aspect that out of the 60 questions, you have to attempt only 50 questions. So you can leave 5 questions definitely. For example, you can say, I am not good at logic and reasoning, so I will not attempt any of these questions. I would not suggest you to not attempt any of the questions because since there is no negative marking, you should at least attempt 50 on 50 questions. Okay, so even if there is an incorrect choice, it does not matter. But if it is a correct choice, you will definitely get a extra marks. So I would suggest is if there is no negative marking in the coming examinations, also you attempt all the questions. Do not leave a single question. And in paper one specifically, out of the 60 questions, only 50 would be considered for scoring. So if you have the first 50, whatever the first 50 would be in sequence that you have marked would be checked, the remaining 10 would not be checked. So make sure that you do the questions accordingly and you focus on these main areas. So as we can see, computers, communications, teaching and research are the main focus areas. Besides that, so this constitutes 25 to 30 questions and then 10 questions here. So you have 40 questions straightforward which you can solve. Okay, so this time the summary of this is you must be good at vocabulary. So practice a lot of reading comprehension. For reading comprehension, the best idea to practice is to read the editorials of any English newspaper, be it Times of India, be it The Hindu. Just keep on reading the editorials, and when you read the editorials, whatever difficult word you find in between, just refer to dictionary for the same word. So this would help you increase your vocabulary and also help you understand the flow of the language and reading comprehension. So with this, I wind up the class for today. Hope this class was useful. In the next sessions, we would be talking about some of the important topics that were asked for UGC 2013 and 2014 examinations, the important topics that you need to focus on. If you have any doubts or any questions, you can email at contact us at examrace.com. Hope you enjoyed this session. Have a good day ahead.